Welcome to the London Hour. It's not in London, it's not an hour, but I'm here to share thoughts, commentary, and opinions with you about tabletop role-playing games and your other favorite forms of entertainment, and maybe sing a song, because that's what we do here. Let's dive in. How's everybody doing tonight? It's Wednesday night, and I'm feeling all right. I've had an interesting week, that's for sure. We got summoned back into the office full-time, effective April 1st, and there isn't space for everybody, and they're like, figure it out. So that's fun, and there's been a lot of pushback, and that's been very dramatic. So I had a little bit of rant at work today. It was fun, got to let loose a little. Tonight, we're talking about the Lambda Act. What the heck is the Lambda Act, you ask? That is the game of London Station. If London Station were a game, did you know London Station was a game? Have I told you? Wrapping up work? Good. Glad to hear it, because you work too late too often. Hippo. You devoted creature, you. Yeah, so the Lambda Act. If London Station were an RPG, it would be the Lambda Act. And all of the lore that we've been building together in Mission Control on the London Station Discord, whether you knew it or not, is building into what is the default setting for the Lambda Act, used with everybody's permission, of course. If you don't want your stuff in there, that's fine. But we get to do it as a group, and it's pretty neat. It's exciting, and I managed in the last literal 2 minutes to find my original documents. No, original. The most recent documents, and apparently I wrote up like a page and a half of lore here, and I even have a timeline calendar. So that's cool. We're gonna look at that. What is a game? A game is a moment in time, per one of my old articles. But we won't talk about that tonight. We won't talk about that tonight. Right on, Tortuga, thank you for stopping in. Thank you for your YouTube comments as well. Where did you go hard on that YouTube comment? I want everybody else to go read it too. It was on the comment for the Lone Wolf stream from Sunday. Go read Tortuga's comment. Thumbs it up or respond to it or whatever. Because he put in the time. The ancient text. No, these are not the... You want ancient texts. Oh boy. There's ancient texts out there. We can get into those someday. But first, we have to sing. And this is not an easy one. I have to go for it. So, as usual, maybe turn your volume down a little bit, just in case when I belt for the high notes. But I just ran through it twice. And as we know, that doesn't mean that I'll hit it live, because that's how that goes for me. But a lot of it's well within my range, and I'm going to crush it, and it's great. And if you think this song might be dedicated to you, maybe it is. Maybe. Something to ponder. This is Guiding Light. Pure hearts stumble, in my hands they crumble, fragile and stripped to the core. I can't hurt you anymore. Loved by numbers, you're losing life's wonder, and touch like strangers detached. I can't feel you anymore. The sunshine trapped in our hearts, it could rise again. But I'm lost and crushed and cold and confused, with no guiding light left inside. Ooh, you were my guiding light. Ooh, when comfort and warmth can't be found, I still reach for you. But I'm lost and crushed and cold and confused with no guiding light left inside. You were my guiding light. You're my guiding light. When there's no guiding light left inside. When there's no guiding light in our life. How about that one? That's a fun song. Muse! Yes, I've got a few Muse songs locked down, and that is one of them that I tried many times to record in the past, and it never came out quite the way I liked. But this one, I think, went okay. So that's one tab I can close in Google Chrome and free up my memory once again. Thank you, Hippo. Appreciate it. Hope you all like that. Someday I need to do a supercut of all the stuff I sing. But every time I go to do it, I look at the very first thing I sang, which I butchered, and then I'm like, I don't want to do this. So let's talk about RPG design. I have no rights or credentials to be a RPG designer, but unlike some people, I am not fussed about using the label because I'm designing an RPG, and that makes me an RPG designer. Okay, that works for me. I have always wanted a sci-fi RPG that captured a couple things that I couldn't or haven't or have not yet found in sci-fi RPGs. And what I want, I keep talking about these books, these guys, the Jack McDevitt books. I want the feeling from a sci-fi TTRPG that you're in a sci-fi novel. And sci-fi novels, the ones that I read anyway, are about discoveries. They're about finding interesting things. They're about exploration. They're about they're almost slice of life. What is it like to be on the ship for a 2-week journey when you're in, I think in this series, they go through like a subspace bubble when they do like distant travel. And it's just completely black outside the starship viewports. Just black. And what does that look like? And they have entertainment and like what you might call a holodeck or whatever on the ships. And they call them the sims, the simulators, where they play movies, but you actually like get to embody the role in the simulator. So it's you, but you're seeing it from your point of view, but you're living the movie, but it's pre-scripted and everything. So it'll be like, yeah, we sat down and watched this movie, and like John, the communications tech guy, played the daring, hero, and Jenny played like the damsel in distress, and it was really campy, but we all had a good time. And then the trip goes on and they get bored of it. But answering that question of like, what is it like to be on a spaceship? What is it like to be surrounded only by 3 or 4 people, the same 3 or 4 people the whole time? So that's not necessarily what we're going to get into with the Lambda Act, because the Lambda Act is based on, or London Station is based on Lambda Act. Lambda Act is based on London Station, because London Station is Lambda Station. And we're going to get into the lore because I wrote it down, apparently, in January. And so I'm going to pull that up, and we're going to look at it. And give you guys a little bit more concrete history on how this all works, why London Station is in the interesting situation that it's in, and I don't remember what I wrote, so we're going to read it live and see if it makes any sense whatsoever. So let me go over here, and then I got to add a source probably because I didn't prepare this. Maybe not. Maybe I'm closer than I thought. Bam. Nailed it. Nailed it. Perfect. No room to improve. More? Bigger? Bigger? More? More. Yes. Hey, Alejandra. How are you doing? If you just got here, you missed the song. But you can go back for it. Here it is. Here's the document I started to work on. Those of you who have read either the free issue of The Signal or the most recent one will recognize the formatting here. This is where I was also testing out and getting my brand colors and everything for the signal locked down. Oh, I also have, look, I have this little watermark of the logo in the background. I decided it was too busy for the full publication, so. Oh, my thing's broken. There it is. There you are. So, here we have it. The Lambda Act is a sci-fi RPG focused on exploration, humanity, and the price of knowledge. I wrote that a couple months ago. I don't know what I meant. Players will explore a new planet, its 2 satellite moons, and beyond as they search for resources, opportunities, and new discoveries. Sounds an awful lot like London Station, because it is. The year is 3025. The year is 3026. I didn't know when I would be going live with this channel. Anyway, that could change, but sometimes you just always want to add 1,000 to make it easy. Universal Control is the entity that has overseen galactic expansion over the last millennia. After successfully expanding throughout the solar system and deploying multiple colonies, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, and Epsilon stations, spelled wrong, fixed, they found the means to travel more distantly, the Lux Line. $2 in knowledge. That's a good rate. Is that our dollars or your dollars? A single car, and this is a train car, the Lux Line is a space train. Because when I started using the name London Station, people were like thinking it had to do with London the city or a train station. And I thought, that's cool. I'll use space trains. A single car would be sent ahead. Its trans-dimensional processes aborted mid-trip. And in that location, construct the Wicket, a curving track that would catch future approaching Lux Line trains. So basically, you send the first little car out, and it's like a transformer, and it goes booyah, pop, 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 and they build it into a thing to catch other incoming light speed or faster trains. Intergalactic dollars, yeah. Once established, resources could be sent to assemble stations of varying types, depending on the need. Stations Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Epsilon, Delta, and on were constructed over the course of hundreds of years and did not require use of the Lux Line, though it did make travel between them simpler. Thereafter, stations Zeta, Eta, Theta, Iota, and Kappa were constructed with multiple decades in between. Many multiple decades, frankly. You'll see why later. Pioneers and homesteaders over the millennia, eager for new opportunity, headed out to the stars, and Universal Control, for its investment, laid a lien on the station that 10% of all gross revenues be sent back to Universal Control for a period of 100 years, after which time the station would graduate to a Centurion station and receive full autonomy. Got it? You tracking? They build a new station. For 100 years, you tithe 10% back. Not tithe, you know what I mean. It's not tithing if it's forcible extraction. They're taxed 10% or whatever you want to call it. So all of the resources generated, all of the value generated from these stations or any of the surrounding settlements that then came out down to planet surface from the stations, they would do that. Now, it occurred to me that surely it's a lot more expensive to build a space station than to just get down to the planet's surface and just do stuff there. But, then we wouldn't have a space station. And what are we even doing here? We're trying to play in a game with a space station, is what we're doing here. The Lambda Act. This is what started it all for us. As time went on, investment in resources dwindled. Maintenance and upkeep of these stellar lanes of travel waned, and political pressures at home, the origination planets and first Torah stations, I didn't remember adding that detail, but that's kind of neat. I don't know. Soured many on the proliferation of these distant stations. Kairos Station was in its 89th year, soon approaching Centurion status, when one of the 3 remaining Lux Line trains was decommissioned for safety reasons. We're down to 2 trains now. Indicators suggested that the remaining 2 engines would face similar fates in the decades to come. With this in mind, and the resources for one last station in hand, Universal Control enacted the Lambda Act, a measure that preemptively granted Kairos Station Centurion status and reallocated the remaining resources towards one final station. Lambda Station would be granted a unique charter, given that the lifespan of the Lux Line resources were in serious question. So, it represented a unique opportunity for scientists, miners, businessmen, and the like. It was extremely unlikely that the station would need to send resources back home, as the other 10 stations had done for a 100-year period, excepting Kairos Station cut 11 years short. With these provisions in mind, Kairos Station was given 1 year notice, during which the Wicket was being built for Lambda Station, and all resources thereafter were sent to this new sector. Lambda Station took the usual 3 to 4 years to see full construction and another 1 to 2 years of provisioning before being christened as London Station. And right on cue, one of the remaining 2 Lux Line trains went down, not decommissioned this time, but in a tragic accident that cost many, many lives. I forgot about that too. That's cool. Travel to and from London Station is no longer a luxury. It is done by risk or necessity, and fewer trips means fewer opportunities to send back stockpiles of resources. London Station is on its own in many ways, and it's never been a more opportune time for the industrious. Oh. Pretty cool, right? That came out of my brain. And yeah, I am a little spicy today. I'm fired up from work. It's a dramatic, dramatic place right now. So, here's your calendar. Universal calendar. Which, did I update this? I think I did. 3020 UC date, and then you have Kappa Annum, and then you have Lambda Annum. So the year from opening of the stations. Each station has its own year tracking for people that don't leave or don't leave that system. And then, of course, Universal calendar is like, that's our time here. So, 3020 UC, Lux Line 1 goes down, Lambda Act is passed, Kappa Station to be granted honorary Centurion status at 81 KA. Last chance rides offered as Lux Line to be repurposed for Lambda Station. So anybody on Kairos Station, if they wanted to get back to Universal Command or any of the other surrounding systems that didn't require Lux Line, they're like, you got a year to get your stuff sorted out. After the end of this year, yeah, the trains, such as they remain, will be making trips. They'll be hitting up stations as they're able to, but we're going to be using them to send like our most important personnel for specific things, to requisition supplies from specific stations. So we have authority to determine when that train is going anywhere. And you can't count on it being available. 3021, 81 Kappa Annum, 0 Lambda Annum. Lambda site is chosen. Lambda speeder is deployed. I think that's, this sounds dumb, but I looked this up. I was like, what are like the little solo train car tracks that like go out ahead and they like clear tracks or they like lay tracks ahead of them? It's just called a speeder. So that's some legit train knowledge for you. Lambda speeder is deployed. The Wicket is constructed within this first year. 3022, Lux Line 2 and Lux Line 3 start arriving. Construction of Lambda Station begins. 3023, construction of Lambda Station is complete. Provisioning, personnel transfers, and administrative elements are instilled. 3024, Lambda Station christened as London Station. 3025, Lux Line 2 goes down. Lambda Act enters Phase 2. 3026, now. Mission control and this game happen 1 year after we go down to one train. It is a time of great profit because these people who got out there do not have to send their resources back nearly as much. Lambda Station, London Station, is only going to keep in reserves maybe enough for 1 or 2 train trips. And anything beyond that, they're not going to stockpile it because it's not going to get off the station. So then they build their stockpile, everything's surplus. These companies, these whatever, miners, profiteers, not profiteers, they're taking trips down to the surface of Eidolon. We know the planet name now. Or they're visiting Therion, the sulfurous volcanic moon, or they're visiting Kippa, the strange pink forested moon with whiteout conditions of pink petal blossoms that hang in the air because there's not enough gravity to pull them down. That's it, guys. That's the setting. This is when you guys have been suggesting things through mission control, when you're using your metadisk tokens in the Discord. If you don't know, somebody will tell you in chat or ask. This is everything I'm basing what I'm saying yes and no to. This is a story, and it's a game about one world. And the neat thing about that is we can get ourselves away from the problem, the ice planet Hoth problem, the one biome planet problem that plagues sci-fi. It's very tough to overcome. Now, could this story, could this game expand beyond there? Yes, it could, and I know exactly how I want to do it. But you're going to have to uncover that at some point, I think. Or we build together, one way or another. I like it. I made it, and I like it, and it's cool, and it's been cooking in the background for a while. Now, how do we turn this into a game? What game do we use as a base? Are we talking about a full-on game, right? Are we talking about a hack? I think there's enough out there that we should be talking probably about a hack. Sia Pepper, thank you for stopping by. Alejandra, I'm glad you like a mental image. I don't know which one, but I'm glad you like it. So here I have some notes, as I do in a Google Sheet. So I'm just going to read. This is for me as much as it is for you guys, because I'm refamiliarizing myself with this. I don't know what inspired me to do this on this stream, but I thought it was time. It was time. I said I want the PC to approach a problem and be able to say, for example, make a biology check. Okay, so I'm talking about skill systems there. And I say check against what? A DC, an opposed roll. Didn't answer those questions. They're just notes. Here I have a list. Elements of London Station campaign. There's a cyberspace on the station, very much like in Astro Prisma. There is station navigation itself, like navigating all the different whatevers that are on the station. Science labs and equipment bunkers and storage units and residential areas and shopping centers and whatever else you might have on a cool space station. Spaceflight itself is an element. If you have ships that leave the docks of London Station. And the Wicket is still there, by the way. So the Wicket is this like crescent moon type thing, which is pretty cool imagery. The trains get stuck there while they're in at dock or whatever you call it when a train is at the station. It's at the station, right? And then little shuttles fly back and forth between the station and the trains to all the different trains. That's how that works. There are landing zones on the planet's surface, on the moon's surfaces. There's exploration, there's science, there's alien cultures, I wrote. I don't anticipate working in active living alien cultures. Might we discover some throughout playing through Mission Control, perhaps? But I think I'm more likely to go the xenoarchaeology route, where you are uncovering what once was here and maybe where it points to and why. I think those are fun questions to ask, and I don't have the answers preset. But I want that feeling of wonder and discovery, and anything is possible because we don't know what's out here this far. In the Perseus arm of the Milky Way galaxy, by the way. I don't think I got that in the notes. But I did pick which arm of the Milky Way we're in, the Perseus arm. I said, do I want a narrative outcome range? I didn't answer it, I just asked. Or do I want to present a clear challenge/obstacle to be overcome? It's so good. Xenoarchaeology is so fun. That's what these books are all about. These ones. I can't line up my pen. These ones are so good. If a little formulaic, unfortunately, but they're so fun. I said I definitely want partial successes. At this time, I was already looking at M-Space. So M-Space is a hack already of Mithras Imperative, which is a stripped-down rule set of Mithras, which was temporarily, well, it was what, the 6th edition, technically, of RuneQuest, because it changed hands, and so then that goes back in its history to RuneQuest, and that goes back to basic role-playing, and it's all this D100 skill-based role under simulationist game. And I found M-Space, which I think is a very promising base for what I want this game to be and what I want this game to do. But we're going to find out. I said, does Mithras just give that to me by way of saying partial successes? And I don't recall. I don't think it does, really, to be honest. But you can build that in. You just put a range on how close you failed or how close you succeeded. And then I said, do I just trust the system? Maybe I just take this setting and slap it onto M-Space and call it a day. We're not going to do that because it has a lot of baggage from the D100 skill-based games world, and we'll see that in a second. Other note, here I say, yeah, it's right what I said next. Other note, way too many skills, way too many professions, not enough cultures, question mark. I wrote number of skills, 61, WTF. I said this system is very pass-fail. In my head, I'm trying to think of ways to change that to a more mixed success model. But what if I turn that on its head? What if it's pass-fail because you have to get a specialist and come back? So failure is not the end. Failure is I ran into something I don't have the specialty for. Go back up to London Station, grab somebody else, and come back down. Or run over to some other base camp where some character is. Come back out to the field. What if the game is about unlocking checks and then passing them as a community? Wouldn't that be fun? Is literally what I wrote here. You thought 3.5 had a lot? Yeah, I'm sure there are other BRPs that have even more. Definitely a lot of skill build. You say that era, but I think this game came out in 22 or sometime somewhat recently. I got to check because I didn't realize I was working off an old version until somebody bought me the current version. Thank you, Hippo. Where did I put it, though? Right there. I put it right there. Don't open on that side of my screen. I need it over here. Let's take a look at it. That's not it. I don't want that. I want... Did I remove that source entirely? I must have. We can get it back. We know what we're doing now. Wait. Oh, yes. Nailed it. Once again, crushed it. Oh, I know what I did. No, I don't. Never mind. Sorry, I'm all over the place. So like I said, it was a weird day. All right. M space. A square book. It's a square. It's 8.5 by 8.5, I think. Interesting, right? And it has this really kind of understated aesthetic. It's not like packed to the gills with art or anything like that. 2020, yeah. Frostbite Books 2020. So neat. We'll continue to look at that as needed. But bring this back up here. The Lambda Act, an M-space hack funded by Hippo. That had a little bit of poetry to it, the way I read it. The Lambda Act, an M-space hack funded by Hippo. And then I need to like tap on some bongos. That's what I needed right there. What else? Oh, this is when I invented locks. Oh my god, I love this so much. It does look like an architectural design book. You're right. Yeah, you are 100% right. So this is when I invented one of the coolest things I've ever invented. I don't know how I would make this work, but this is something I'm really excited for. I said, what are these things then, these discoveries? Mysteries? Cores? Just checks? In the fiction, what are they? Opportunities? Coming back with unsolved checks should be exciting. That is a goal of the system, to the point where when you find a check to bring it back to be solved, you're excited. That's your loot. That's like your narrative loot. And you're not guaranteed necessarily to find one at all. So when you do, it should be a big deal. And the idea being that you bring it back with you if it's something that can be brought back, an artifact, whatever. If it's like you're uncovering a ruin, then you call for somebody else to come down to it and uncover what it is and what it means. So I said, coming back with an unsolved check should be, and this is capital C check, should be exciting almost as much as solving them yourself. To which point you want a all caps, diverse set of skills, maybe even 61, and then I put in parentheses, vomit. See you, Bo. Good to see you as always. I said, so that's it. So that it's the stationers coming back together to advance their lives, the station, etc. And behind every unlock should be something exciting as well. Lore, materials, resources. Once it's unlocked, it can be tapped again, maybe a limited number of times if it's a resource. Okay. I was playing around with other names here: riddle, mystery, enigma. I said locks have a pool like an extended conflict. So that's an M-space rules thing, extended conflict, which is kind of like a opposed skill challenge type of a thing, which is what these will kind of be. They're kind of clocks. They're kind of checks. They're kind of skill challenges, right? But I conceived that, and because it's roll under, these are negatives, which means they're a bonus. But maybe you have an on-site bonus. If you leave it where it is and you bring the person to it, you get a 10% bonus to solving the lock. A novelty bonus, which I mean if this was something completely new. So for example, if you're rediscovering like another deposit of ores or something like that, you wouldn't get the novelty bonus. And then I had, what is this? An iteration bonus. If you augment with a skill that has previously resulted in a success, you may add an additional 5%. So you're building on the knowledge that either you yourself or other players have earned. Cool idea. I continued to play with names. I called them a finding, a lore finding, a material finding, a resource finding, like finding being the proper noun there. And then I went source, and then I wrote lock, and I went, yes, they are locks. You're finding locks, and like the imagery is like you're finding these padlocks, these withheld nuggets of information and excitement and opportunity, and they are one letter off of clocks, which are well known and very popular. And maybe somebody's already used locks, in which case they can come fight me. But I like it, and I'm planning to use it, and everything's subject to change anyway, so it's all good. But I got really excited about locks. I was like, that's what the gameplay, in my opinion, should be about. The lore is about these people on this space station who've been given this free reign of this planet, where they're not sending back 10% of everything they get, and their operating margins, if they're a business or an enterprise, are not getting sucked up by the fact that their station has a lien placed on it for 100 years. But they're not getting that opportunity after 100 years have already gone by. They're getting it now, right? So that's the exciting part of it. Anybody can gather together, 1, 2, 3, 4 people, if they have a spaceship, and they can go down to the surface, and they can go make their explorations and their discoveries to enrich themselves, to enrich the station, to enrich factions and organizations. One of the things you can buy with your mission control metadiscs are organizations. We have had now, somebody bought the name of the planet Eidolon, they bought the name of the planet Therion, name of the planet Kippa, and then we had a fourth one spent recently to buy a crash site, which is based off of a book, Rainbow at the Starbow's End, I think it was, that this Patreon member was taking inspiration from. Was it Gull? I think it was Gull. So we have the crash site of just the Starbow, which is a experimental ship that was trying out new technology for warp speed, because there's always an experimental ship, and it always goes wrong. And it disappeared 80 years ago. But at this crash site, the ship has gently touched down. And it's been like parted out, like everything's missing, and it's just the skeleton of the ship left, basically. But it didn't crash. And so maybe there's some people around this like salt marsh cliffside where it landed. So somebody bought that with a metadisc. But you can buy organizations. You can buy like a criminal cyber hacker sphere thing. We can focus on the cyber sphere of the ship. It's really just, whatever people want to be interested in. So it's cool. It's so cool. It was Gull. Okay. I should probably get this reference, but I don't. Because I know what I know. I'm not necessarily broadly culturally, keen. I don't know. I know what I am. On this next tab, I wrote the Lambda Act is, and I wrote opportunity, uncertain, delicate. I said the Lambda Act is not hopeless, dystopian, grim, gritty, grimy, used up, or pristine. It's not those things. It's occupying the middle space. It's occupying the everyday. I took a class in college. Didn't know I was going to talk about this today. I took a class in college called Theories of the Everyday. And it was English 301, if I recall. 302. It was 302 at that time. And it focused on a syllabus of reading that was about, this is so funny to think back on now. I can't believe I never made this connection. It was focused on these books and writings that were all about, taking something extraordinarily mundane and analyzing them deeply and asking questions and saying, what does it mean that products that you buy have clear plastic windows that allow you to see into them? What does that mean? It's there, you can't touch it. It's tempting and sexualized of commodities. We'd read a paper about that, and then we'd be like, huh, that is fascinating. I wrote an entire paper. I had a pen, and this is plastic, but it's looks like it's metal. And so I did research on what it meant to chrome something. What does it mean to have a chrome bumper on a car? What does it mean to have chrome on a pen? Why are we making things look like metal when they're not metal? What's behind that? What are we thinking? What are we trying to tap into? I wrote an entire paper on that in that class. It's called Theories of the Everyday. Fantastic class. And so there's an element of that apparently, I'm learning about myself in this moment right now, that I'm drawn to slice of life. I'm drawn to imbuing and imbibing? No, that's probably the wrong word to use. Living in these experiences, in these spaces, and finding games that give us the opportunity to do that. And then you take one person's brain and the idea that they want to get out of a game, and you take another person's brain and you put them together and you go mix and stir and you see what happens. So it's not hopeless, dystopian, grim, grimy, gritty, used up, or pristine. It's somewhere in between. I said it is less futuristic than Star Trek. It is less metaphysical than Star Wars. As far as what I'm going for. Here come the spreadsheets. Here come the spreadsheets of me trying to figure out how I wanted to handle this D100 DNA if I even use this game. I'm over here calculating success percentages and all sorts of wacky stuff. What I arrived at so far, anyway, is rather than having 61 skills, it's Star. Love that. Star. rather than having 61 skills, I thought there's probably some, and they have this in the 61 skills they had. I think they're called standard and professional in the M-Space text itself. And all that really does is affect which pools you can choose from at which stage of character creation. Beyond that, it doesn't really matter. So it's just kind of gatekeeping the professional ones. And I was like, isn't that kind of just like proficiencies? Why don't we just modernize that a bit? And I spent a lot of time taking what was already there and trying to get it into some core skills. Maybe what I called them. Did I call them core skills? I called them standard and expert, I guess. But whatever. I don't care for those names particularly either. And I mapped them as cleanly as I could over. I kept as many stats exactly the same as they were as I could justify. And I came up with a new skill system that had, how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 base skills with a bunch of specialties that you can spec into. And that's what I was starting to work on and develop, and asking myself, is there unnecessary duplication here? You could see I still have some of this old, I call it old, it is. Everywhere you see size and power, that's a BRP thing, basic role-playing. It's in a lot of the Call of Cthulhu's, it's in your Pendragons, it's in your stuff, right? And so I haven't had to sacrifice that yet, but I have to ask myself at some point, is the inclusion of these stats serving the type of game that I want to see? And I think you can see here, I'll explain what all colors mean in a minute. I think you can see here, though, that I am trying to preserve this sense of it mattering what you're good at, so that you need others to help you, which is kind of this limiting aspect to it. Self-limiting. Girl by Moonlight, again, we always talk about Girl by Moonlight. Girl by Moonlight, as far as Forged in the Dark games goes, it gives you very, very few skill points to use to build your character, because the game forces you to rely on the power of friendship. And that's why you get links, and you spend the links to be as effective as a character in another game might start, like a Blades in the Dark. And I had players look at this and think, wow, you do not get enough stats in the beginning. And it's like, correct, because the game is forcing you to rely on your friends. I want something similar there. I want crew members to rely on each other, almost like my whole thing, building a community, supporting each other, lifting each other up, celebrating each other. So there is an element of having a lot of skills that preserves that. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing. Because here's the other thing. I could go this simulationist angle and think you're going to land with your spaceship. How good is your landing spot? It's going to be determined by, I don't know, your pilot skill. You're going to travel overland to where maybe there's some interesting readings, and you're going to find that there's some unusual stones there. And then you're going to have somebody like do some excavation briefly. And while you're doing that, somebody is going to be on security watch, because there's strange creatures sounding off as the sun starts to go down, and somebody else is pitching a tent, and they're preparing a meal from, like, I don't know, a space bag. Instant boiled, heated, whatever, noodles or something. I can do that in this very simulationist way. And it doesn't even have to be that hard, because all you have to have is a robust system to set DCs. I don't think they're called DCs in this system, or, you know, these BRPs, but something that's modular. I use this as an example just because I know it well, but Pathfinder 2nd Edition has a DC structure of the following. Untrained, 10. Trained, 15. Expert, 20. Master, 30. Legendary, 40. What that's telling you is, if you meet something with a expert DC, and it's a DC of 20 in Pathfinder 2, it's telling you somebody who you think of as an expert in this should have a decent chance of success, like 60 to 70%. That's like 60 to 70 is kind of that sweet spot for D20 games, that so many things hit at 60, 70. Then on top of that, there's an entire different DC system. Pathfinder 2 has 2 separate DC systems. One of them is just level-based, and then there's ranges. But for that other system I was talking about, the simple trained, or the untrained, trained, expert, master, legendary, it also says if this would be something you'd consider easy, take 2 off of that. If it would be very easy, take 5 off of that. So you take the default task, you'd say this is something an expert should reasonably accomplish. It's even easier than that, so it's a -5. So now somebody who's maybe trained could actually hit it. But it's still considered an expert task, but there are circumstances that are making it easier. That's how the DC system in Pathfinder 2 works. So if you can come up with a clean and robust and easy to understand system for this, then you can say you're going to set up a camp and the weather is this, and so I'm going to give it a hard modifier, and bam, there you go. So I could do it that way. Let's see here. It's a question of whether it serves the fantasy of the game. If the system doesn't get you cooperating, you're going to struggle against the game to be where you want to be. 100%. Here's the problem. Here's my problem. There's another sci-fi game that I am very fond of. It's called Offworlders. It's a very lightweight sci-fi powered by the apocalypse RPG. It's pay what you want if you want to look it up and get it, or support the developer, of course, if you can. And I actually just ran a spontaneous Offworlders game for a couple people in the channel the other day, and it was a lot of fun. And I could use that as a framework and do away with all of this simulation and let it be story-driven and go with, like I said in the very beginning, do I want a narrative outcome range, or do I want to present a clear challenge/obstacle to be overcome? That is going to be one of the core questions I need to answer before I can really do much more work of any kind on anything. But I tell you what, it's fun to talk about either way. So even if nothing came of it, this is a good time. So there's a core identity question there, right? What is the experience that the players will have at the table? Because maybe you run Offworlders and you run it up against the Lambda Act M-Space hack, whatever you want to call it. And you run them in parallel. And you say, interesting stories happen on both sides. Successes and failures happen on both sides. Maybe they even run out the same way. But the experience at the table is going to be very different. And so it's about figuring out what I want that experience to be, anticipating any trade-offs or downsides to going one side or the other, and then trying to figure out where we want to go. So, what is on this sheet over here? Oh, yeah, we don't need to look at that. So that's the core question at the heart of it. And then it gets even more fun, because we've already talked about Legend in the Stars on our channel. A lot of us are excited about Legend in the Mist. I just got a hold of support, and I upgraded my pledge, so I get both books hardcover now, because stupid book made me like it so much. So I upgraded. It's pretty cool. Looking forward to it. But I do feel, and I have felt, that there is a lighter weight Legend in the Mist within the text of Legend in the Mist itself. Essentially, you could run that game without ever touching the detailed, is that what it's called? The detailed outcome? Legend in the Stars. Which would be then that lighter version of Legend in the Mist in space. And then now I would have a game on my hands where I'm talking about characters. The focus would shift a little bit from the discoveries and the bring whatever you want to your character kind of skills to narrative truths. And those can mirror one-to-one. You can have tags and theme tags and broad tags and all of that do relate to skills. And so there can be some overlap there, but the focus is different, right? Again, in the same vein as with Offworlders, you're more telling narrative beats, right? So maybe the answer is Legend in the Stars. I don't know. I'm talking myself into loving all of these ideas, and that's problematic, as you can imagine. That's why you found me. That's why right there. I've literally been thinking nonstop about how I would run a space-based campaign in Legend in the Mist. Here's the thing, though. This is why I keep talking about the stripped-down version of Legend in the Mist, because the stripped-down version, you preserve all the tags, you preserve all the theme cards and everything like that. Yes, it was there in City of Mist. Yes, it's there in Otherscape. But then you can look at it, and And if I did this, I would want to look at Otherscape compared to Legend in the Mist. And then I would ask myself, where did they diverge? Where did they shift focus? Because those are the elements that you're going to excise and then replace with your own for Legend of the Stars. You're going to find the same places that are not one-to-one in the system. And you're going to say, these are the opportunities where the designers, the very capable designers, said, this is where we're going to deviate to make this game about something else. You find out where those two games don't line up. And you find out where you need to do new creation. Legend of the Mist buffers this up with a wealth, an embarrassment of riches of the rustic fantasy tropes. So what goes in the place of rustic fantasy tropes where those show up in the text, in the rules, in Legend in the Mist? And what do you have for your theme types? Because that's a core aspect of Legend in the, City of Mist, Otherscape, Legend of the Mist. In Legend of the Mist, it's origin, adventure, greatness. So you're telling a story about people across different might levels. We'll use the rules text. Different might levels. And you're telling a story that allows them all to coexist. And that itself is grounding in telling you what kind of scope you're looking at. That itself tells you about the game. In Otherscape, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's self, mythos, and noise, I believe. And I just don't have as firm of a handle on that game. But the mythos being this resurrecting kind of spiritual awakening that's happening in the Otherscape world. The noise being like your cybernetic implants and being constantly plugged in, and the social medias and all that. And then the self being the third one. that's pushing and pulling against the others. And then City of Mist is a binary or a duology or whatever you want to call it between, is it just self and mythos? Somebody will know. That is the easiest and most observable way in which those three games differ, where you would say, I now need to identify what goes in that design space. It doesn't have to be competing. Otherscape is very competing. There's tension and push and pull between them. Legend in the Mist is progression or change, because you can revert, you can whatever, and grow in from origin to adventure to greatness, or you could be telling the story of going from greatness to adventure to origin. It's a game that encourages you to change, really, in a lot of its mechanics, because you are triggering. See how well I've internalized these rules, because I haven't picked up the book since I streamed about it. You are marking improve when you invoke your weakness tag, because you are improving at the thing you're bad at if you are rolling it and you succeed, right? Do you have to succeed to mark improve? I don't remember. Mythos and logos, thank you. So the rules tell you the themes that the story is also trying to tell you in good design, and these games have good design as far as I'm concerned. So then it's like, all right, well, what are the themes that I'm pulling at here? And that is when I need to start writing, because I'm getting somewhere with this. On the TV, I'm a star. I'm on the telly. My bike volume is low. You know what I need to check? Because I did notice this the other day too. I wonder if Windows didn't do that stupid thing it always does and reset the microphone to 75. Here we go. I'm clicking the tab. It's at 34%. We just fixed this at work today too. And I was like, okay, hold on to your ears. I'm ramping up the microphone. Jeez. And I told the guys at work, I was like, I need to check this on my home computer too, because that last stream was really quiet. Windows, you've let me down again. Okay, so it's 7:49. We're going to start back over. I'll be right back. I'm just kidding. We'll take it from the top. Now I'm redlining. Gosh. Windows. You think you know best, but why would I ever set my microphone input to 34%? Unforgivable. But that is the sort of thing I need to put on my before stream checklist. So lesson learned there. Thank you, Logan. Yeah, thank you. All right. You don't have to succeed. You just need to use weakness. Okay, good. Cool. Because the experience is in the trying, not the succeeding. Okay, so should I do this in a document or in a Google Sheet? It's going to be Google either way. What's my question for myself? What are the themes that I want the mechanics to reinforce? Now, I'm currently on this train of thought because we've been talking about Legend in the Mist. Is the game going to be based on Legend in the Mist? I don't know. But whatever we figure out and identify from this process is going to inform any design I do anyway. It's all fruitful. And I think that's pretty neat. I guess we'll put it back up on the screen. Could be cool if you had to pick between work knowledge and personal life emotions. Yes, that could be. That could very much give a particular, yeah. If the stories were about that, I'll put it down as an idea. You can't twist my arm because we're brainstorming. It is impossible. What did you even write? There it is. Work knowledge versus personal life emotions. Yeah. It could be, I don't know that this excites me, but it could be a tension between profit is the word that comes to mind, but it's not necessarily the right word. You know what I'm getting at, though, is I've talked about these resources that are on the planet and these industrious people, and if they can go out there and they can get it, and it's like wealth. So there could be some tension between the I won't try and restrict myself too hard. The obtaining of wealth versus the obtaining of knowledge. There's something there. You can imagine a character who's more on the wealth, practical, I'm here to find the rarest space rocks and sell them back to the station and build a mansion on the lake side where the trees are orange on the planet. And the person who's like, I want to make discoveries to advance mankind. That's a tension you could play with. There's got to be more, though. And if there's not, I'll just ramble on to something else. Thinking. What else have we got? Oh, I should have been putting on my sci-fi music when we did this too. Maybe I will do that right now. While I think. If the program will open. Come on, computer. This is not the hardest thing I've asked you to do all day. What else? There you are. Bear with me. Did not realize my windows were all sized wrong today. So I can't see what I'm doing. How's the volume? Let me know. Maybe a tension between adventuring and safety. Yes, I like that. And that kind of also gets us into that astroprism space a little bit. Because safety would be just living on the settlements, and adventuring is like, what's out there? So I like that. Trying to build up what's there versus trying to go further than the ones who came before. Yeah. Trying to create versus just exist, I guess. I don't know. There's interesting axes to play with here, though. And if I go back to... thanks, Logan. If I go back to... I closed the sheet. I should not have. Because I just need to extract this from the notes I've already taken. I'm sure the raw material's already there. We have that locks concept again. Which, this locks concept does not exist in any of these games that I'm taking inspiration from. So that needs to get built or plugged in as a module or something. Okay. Where do locks fit? Because locks are about discovery. But again, this is interesting too, because it's the discovery to what end? Because some people are trying to do discovery towards a living versus discovery towards discovery for its own sake. I guess, maybe, I don't know. Just brainstorming. Yeah, because, you know, I think it would be, what's the word I want to use? I don't know, my brain shut off. Naive, I think is the word I'm looking for. I think it would be naive to assume that, like, all these people on London Station, they're all just like, let's all discover for advancing the human race. I don't think that's out there at all. I think you're going to have your Han Solos, right? Han Solo just wants to move stuff from place to place. He wants to collect his fare. He's not invested in the rebellion. We don't have a rebellion here, but like if the mission is like, let's advance humanity, you're still going to have your starship captain who's just like, whatever, I'll drop you off wherever you want to go, just pay me. Okay. And we've also talked about in prior streams about how Sci-Fi asks what it means to be human. It asks what makes us us. So I wonder if there's something there. Oops, I have that on repeat. Did not fix that like I said I would. I'll put down the question anyway. And this is a question we're asking every day in our daily life anyway. What does it mean to be? What are we? If we're more than the physical body that we have, what are we? Are we what we leave behind? Are we the art we make? I should be writing these things, not saying them out loud. What are we? If you're more than just bodies, are we what we leave behind? Are we the art we make? Are we the discoveries, the opportunities, the amount that any one of us has moved the needle of humanity? Big questiones. Reminds you of the philosophy of science that holds that science happens when objects of study are subjected to technologies of observation. That's a neat way to put that. I'm sure it does require a lot more context than YouTube can give us. But that's all right. We are daring greatly. Like the book, Daring Greatly. I think the game is interested in this question, this rambling, long-ass question. I think I'm interested in that question as both a player and a designer of the game, that the discoveries are almost the means to the end. They are the goal. I think I joked. Didn't I joke in a recent stream where I was like, maybe we'll talk about Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and now I feel like doing that right now. Why do we do what we do? We know what we do. We know how we do it. How does he do that? It's why, how, and then what on the outer circle. Yes. Yes, the locks are like an abstract discovery. A discovery that the game could have generated itself, could be generated by the GM, or it could be that you just find it and you don't even know what it is until you unlock it. That almost like the way that you unlock it informs what it is. I don't really know what any of that means, but that's the concept, is like the mechanical objective, I think, is to find locks and unlock them. And, you know, you're going to have your danger along the way, and you're going to have your narrative along the way, and you're going to have your challenges. And I should be writing this stuff down. Somebody type what I just said. Sounds like we're landing on an extra axis of community versus individual. Yeah, not really judging either of them, just noticing the tension between them. That is, that's yes, I like that. Because that does play into the what does it mean to be human. Is the human the individual? Is the human the sum of its community parts? Put that back up here. Because there's also that interesting tension between London Station and Universal Command, right? Is it just about London Station because we're cut off and on our own now? It's like the Good Place. It's like, what do we owe to each other? Like, what do we owe back to Universal Command? Without Universal Command, this station wouldn't exist. It almost makes you ask, like, why did they bother to make this station? What's in it for them if they knew that it was going to get cut off soon? So some idealist must have been in a position of power to even enact the Lambda Act in the first place. Otherwise, it never would have happened. Trust me. Ask me about my board meeting on Monday night. Expanse-ish, that's hard to say, or Battlestar Galactica about its secrets of ancient history or alien technology? Probably. Yeah, I haven't watched either of those, and I probably should. But that sounds right. If only this was recorded forever. I know. If only it started with a banger of a song. If only. I need to get that locks thing back. I need to lock in and get the locks on lock. Locks are top of my mind. I just gotta get it on the page. The goal. The mechanical goal of the system. Finding these should be excitement and reward all on their own. I don't know how you probably are going to get some sort of reward even just for finding them. Experience points or whatever system I'm using for progression or whatever. In addition, unlocking them with a capital U will reveal their secrets and convey additional benefits. They may be abstractions that are revealed by their unlocking, which just sounds cool. Or they may be prescriptive. Am I using that word right? I think I am. With set... Oh, I have this on shuffle. That's the problem. Okay. Finally fixed the soundtrack. Locks could work as a framework for adventure design. A box with a key inside, a key for a different box. Yeah. The blockchain. It's just the blockchain. Yeah, probably. Probably. It's not my specialty. But yeah. Because there is that kind of, like, I don't like in-your-face, horror, tension, dread, that kind of stuff. But there is that kind of existential terror of not knowing what's out there. And finding, let's say that the lock is that, like, oh, there's a weird event that happens here at this site on the planet every, I don't know, 30 months. And we're in the 29th month and we just found it, but we don't know what it is. And there's already a colony there, right? So you're like, oh shit. Something like that. Oh, sorry, you opened the other game lock and now we're playing. The rule set changes and now you're in Mothership. No, thank you. I don't want it. I don't want Death in Space. Actually, that's another game, isn't it? Death in Space, which has a really cool cover, if I remember correctly. I should look that up. Death in Space RPG. Am I thinking of the right thing? Yeah, this cover. Look at this thing. Hold on. This is the... Look at the premium I paid for these pixels. Keep trying. I believe in you, and I want to know. Yeah. It's more thriller, psychological thriller, kind of something. There's a word for it out there. Somebody will know. I think that the unknown is scary, and I think that the excitement and the anticipation of discovery is this is another really good tension. Excitement of discovery versus the terror or tension of discovery and the unknown in kind of that Call of Cthulhu way. Kind of like it's so you can't prepare yourself for what you don't know how to prepare for. Words are hard, guys. It's not just you. It's me too. The words are the hard. Set contents is what I was going to say here. What did I do? This line here. I scrolled away. This. I love chat delay sometimes. I'm like, something happened. I got something right. What was it? Yeah, so Jack McDevitt has another series, which I don't have any of the books for, and it is called Ancient Shores. And spoilers, I guess, if you're ever going to read this random sci-fi book. They find this like dome, and I think it's in North Dakota. They find this dome, and it's made of this material that is like indestructible, does not weather, does not age, does not degrade, does not half-life, does not radioactive decay, does not whatever. And it's like this weird greenish sheen. It's not a metal. It's not a plastic. It's all of that and none of it. And so they start to excavate this dome, and they find out that it's like, I might be misremembering something like this. Oh, you know what? No, they find the boat. They find this boat that's buried there. Go into story time mode here. They find this boat, and it's made of this material, and it takes them over to this where they find this dome, and they kind of like slowly are piecing this together, but all the while they're piecing this together, it's like totally throwing off the manufacturing industry, and people are freaking out like, what are we going to do as a society if we can make cars that don't break down? What are we going to do if we can make houses that don't break down? And like these capitalists are losing their goddamn mind because they're like, our industries are going to collapse. And it's like, it's for the betterment of humanity, you pieces of shit. Right? But that's the tension in the book. And like people get like conspiracy theorists and all this stuff. And like one guy comes and he like brings a rocket launcher from his house, this random crazy guy, and he fires it at like the exploration team that's going into this dome to try to figure it out. Anyway, long story short, they find out that basically back before the glaciers receded on Earth, that this was a resort where people would teleport intersolarly, and they would come to like the lake shores of what used to be the giant sea in the middle of America before the Ice Age and before the glaciers receded. And then there's another sequel book where they start to like actually go through some of the portals the other direction to kind of see where else they lead to. And one of the key plot points is they find a living actual alien race. And they're like, wow, okay, we're not going to make contact right now. Let's go back and talk about what we found. And they come back. And the other interesting thing is that there's this tribal narrative to it as well. This is on native land. So like the U.S. government doesn't have the rights to like any of it, but they kind of are pushing themselves on it anyway. And there's this like native leader who's one of the main characters, and he's like trying to hold the ground for like, he's like, this is our land, you know? But the end of that second book it's weirdly anticlimactic and like gives so much tension to the story, because ultimately like they start to think through it and they're like, we don't know what these aliens want. We don't know who they are. We don't know how they behave. And he like goes through it piece by piece to the point where the humans are like, wow, we really can't take any risks to know what these aliens even are or do. And we finally got there, and it's right on the tips of our fingers. And they're like, we can't risk it. We could lose everything. We could lose our whole way of living, our whole planet, everything. We don't know if they would enslave us. We don't know. And we don't have like the time to figure it out before they figure out that we've been here. And so they basically like destroy and shut down the portal from their own side. And it's this really melancholy, like you want it so bad, but you finally get it and you're like, I don't know what this is, and it could destroy us. It's not like the craziest like thing to tell over a series of 2 novels to get all the way there and just be like, we just can't. That's a 1 novel story, not a 2 novel story. You made people wait for the second book. Anyway, it wasn't supposed to be a series to start with, so. Yes, the unknown is scary. Could also be the horror of discovering something new about a known thing, like how you shouldn't use radium to make clocks glow in the dark. Yeah. Shooting for the prequel to Cosmic Horror, the mad scientist discovers the forbidden tome, but before the story hits the introduction of the Cosmic Horror entity. Yeah, it's like that. It's like possibilities open up, and welcome to the stream, by the way, John. Possibilities open up, and they could be wonderful, or they could be terrifying and take from you everything that you've ever had. And like, who are we to be messing around with those questions? It's wild. Super wild. That's where the personal versus communal benefit tension fits. Someone will not be as careful, and you only need one dude to be reckless. Right. It's kind of like nations having nuclear weapons. Had to slide nuclear war in there. You know I had to. Somebody wrote all that down, right? Somebody's taking notes. You guys are taking notes, right? Please email me. So, yeah. That's the locks. So I don't know. I mean, the locks would be served, I think. Again, they could be served by multiple system types, right? Yeah, I'm thinking through this. And again, like I only have real experience with the games I have experience with. So my experiences are colored by what I know. You know, Pathfinder 2, whenever you want to do anything outside of the rules, it's like, just use victory points. Just use victory points. Basically, you're going to set a challenge. You're going to say what you need to do to overcome that challenge. And if you get it, you get a victory point towards your goal. And if you don't, you don't. And you just go through that until the picture becomes clear of the whole thing. And you can port victory points into anything, you know? And in a way, victory points are just clocks, aren't they? The answer is yes. Yes, they are. So anyway, I was thinking locks having segments like clocks would be kind of neat. I mean, you could almost do that graphically. If you were like all the way to like layout and design for this game, you could have like your little graphical image of a lock, but it would have segments on it that you'd have to fill up. That's how I would do it. I reminded you of nukes. Did you forget about nukes? Sorry to have reminded you of nukes. They're no bueno. Did you know that the Sword of Shannara series happened because of nukes? Fantasy classic series from like 1974. Nukes. That's how that came to be. So yeah, there's the locks. There's the locks. Locks are clocks, which is just a silly thing to say and an even more fun thing to write. Locks are clocks. But to the point I was going to make, if this tension between discovery and the horror of discovery, and the tension between the individual and the group, those are the ones I feel are pulling me the strongest. So where do they lead us to? We have these locks as the mechanical element that seeks to answer that question. The contents of the lock are going to determine where the narrative goes. Well, yeah, fair. I also assume most things in the 70s just happened. Well, I think the series he wrote that connected the Shannara series to the prequel series happened in the 90s, perhaps. But, you know, yeah. I mean, was that Cuban Missile Crisis? No. My timeline's all thrown off. Ignore me. I'm being stupid. So, okay. You could take something like M-Space, Mithras, a skill-based system, and it's a very cut and dry how you're going to do these locks. You're going to say, okay, you know, to understand this discovery that you've made, you're going to need to pass a biology check. You're going to need to pass a physics check. You're going to need to pass a language check to decipher the whatever, and you're going to need to pass, I don't know, something. See you, Logan. Thanks for hanging out. I was late over there for you guys. So you could do that with a skill-based system, and you could do that with a narrative system that uses clocks as well. And you can increment segments based on degree of success, like Forged in the Dark does. Oh. I'm just having a flashback to when I first started thinking about making my ideal sci-fi game and realizing that the cyclical nature of Forged in the Dark would actually kind of be perfect. but not Scum and Villainy. Scum and Villainy is telling a very different story than we are here. Well, Forged in the Dark has skills. It has some sort of stress, which I would probably repurpose if I were doing that. Okay, let's say, what if Forged in the Dark? What do we got? We've got skills. We could do a 9 or a 12, and I've got 15, and I could probably condense them if I wanted to. Skills, stress as a mechanic that leads to a worse consequence, which in Blades is trauma. This is, or stress to eclipse in Girl by Moonlight. Why can't I type? A cyclical play loop would be so good for this, though, and Forged is excellent at doing episodic cyclical play loops, because you go through a segment and then you're back at the station, or you're back at the base camp, one or the other. But you go out, you do a thing, you come back. The thing is, you need to have like really clear opposition to have something that you would call a mission in a Forged in the Dark cycle. Missions need clear objectives. And so that kind of, maybe you could figure this out, but that kind of imposes a sort of knowing, as opposed to the sense of, I think, what I want is exploration and discovery. And is it tedious or boring? Okay, wait. Is it tedious or boring to do the same type of mission over and over again if they're all discover this, explore? But. It also tends to require a relatively stable status quo. And I want that. I do. I do really like games that give you a home base that you can kit out or upgrade, and whether your home base is conceptually like a particular starship, or if a particular like base on the surface of the planet, or a particular wing of London Station, or a particular segment of the cybersphere that you're going into. I do intend to flesh out the cybersphere a little bit. I was going to add a narrative element that there was some sort of, I forget what I was going to do with it, but some sort of like alien crystal element of some sort that had like a sentient AI component to it, that when it interfaced with the station's cybersphere basically became almost living and like self-replicating and maybe like procedurally generated, but in like in a sentient way. Was kind of some of the flavor I wanted to give my cybersphere, whatever I end up calling it. But I should recall that even in Girl by Moonlight, there are types of missions, and I think you could do that. And they have the series playsets too. So you could have different suites of missions. So you could have a cybersphere playset, but these wouldn't lock you in place. You would go back and forth between them as you chose. You could go through a cybersphere set of playsets, missions, if you want to call them that, and then you could bounce over to planetary surface exploration, or you could bounce over to like station-bound politics section. So these would all be kind of running at the same time, in so much as you wanted to build them out. But like the missions in each series playset, let me go to Brink of the Abyss because it's the cleanest. And they have tiers as well. So maybe you need locks. Maybe the lock. Okay, so the locks can be progression as well as for their own sake. By which I mean, like, as you obtain locks, you increment a track that increases your play tier, which makes available other mission types. This would be, again, just really cribbing hard from Forged in the Dark, but it's holding my interest. So, like, at the Brink of the Abyss, Girl by Moonlight, this is your Sailor Moon-esque play series. Tier 1 missions are cleansing, free a special person or place from the grip of the Abyss, face a creature of the Abyss, a deadly creature has emerged to advance the Abyss's agenda, stop it. Tier 2, seek answers or reclaim an object of power. And then Tier 3, brave the abyss. This is also designed for seasonal play. So there is a global clock that's ticking down against you when you play Girl by Moonlight. And at the end of it, the season ends. And you can continue into new seasons. But like there's a pretty prescriptive like 6 to 12 session loop that you're in with this. Which does bring up the point that if I wanted to have a more open-ended, free-flowing game, I would need to solve that challenge as well, because Forged in the Dark, a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games are not good at preserving, well, with the exception of Legend in the Mist. So now we're back to Legend in the Stars. Forged in the Stars. Ooh. I'm going to write that down. Because, again, Legend in the Mist is not about arriving. It's about the journey. It's about the change. It's about the characters. Okay. You could also make it so that exploration functions as an oracle, each mission asking a further question until the nature of the lock becomes clear. Yeah. So in this framing, actually, I think you are putting this in a very interesting way where locks are even larger than I'm conceiving of them. I was thinking of locks as many little things that add up to bigger revelations. The way you phrased this is making me think about them differently. Maybe a lock is a bigger thing that you cannot solve without multiple expeditions, let's say. So finding it is a big deal because you've basically unlocked your next like multiple. It's like finding a dungeon. So a lock is a clock, but a lock is also a dungeon, a free-form exploration dungeon, where to get what you need to solve it or understand it, you need to make multiple trips to get the context for them. Why am I not writing this down? I just have to surrender to the fact that, like, I'm going to have to rewatch this later. Alas, Starforged is the sci-fi alternative to Ironsworn, so it might be a bit too close. You know, I haven't looked into Starforged, but I've heard of it. I know of it. I just didn't know what its gameplay was trying to accomplish. Is it kind of discovery-based, you know? I mean, Astro Prisma is discovery-based, too. It's just in that post-apocalyptic multi-worlds setting where I'm trying to focus on a single-world setting. And I mean, I've thought about creating and adding a hack for Astro Prisma as well, where you have the star map of the whole star system, but like you could play Astro Prisma, like zoom in on one planet and have a hex map for just that planet and explore it in exactly the same way. I think that'd be a really cool expansion module to it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Crescent Chimera doesn't just make that book, because I think she said she is working on another book for that system, which is cool. But she's got to open up the first one for sale, and it's not for sale yet. You think that can prevent it from being repetitive? Yeah, it gives an arc to it, right? Yeah, that's cool. And so the things you find along the way are also neat, and they're also contributing to world building, and they're also presenting unique challenges, but not the same challenge over and over again. Yeah. And that does solve this, too. In a way. It's procedurally solo play, so in a sense, yeah, it has to be. Otherwise, people would check out fast. Yeah. Well, maybe I gotta pick that up and read it with all my free time. I have too much to read and too much to play, too much to do. So, sure would be cool to do this full time, which is not even remotely in my radar, but it would be cool. So the challenge is that missions need clear objectives. Let's do shift enter here. Possible quote solution is tailor the missions towards locks. Now, if I were doing this as a community megagame type thing, which I might, then it might be that you go down and you're trying to advance the unlocking of this lock, but instead you find another different one. And then you can start to have like a branching tree of elements that interweave with one another. Some point to one lock, some point to another. And you want to build in a incentive structure that makes people excited when they find either a lock or, I guess I could call it a key. I mean, I'm hedging really close to apocalypse keys now, so I probably don't want to use that language, but maybe I do. I don't know. That's the dream, yeah. It'd be neat. It would be neat. I got a lot to say. Kind of like a West Marches game, everyone mapping the locks and connecting them found together as they are found. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to think, because like we kind of do this in New Dawn with our Pathfinder game. Our structures, we have what we call New Dawn Core, and that's basically like your role play, free play, anybody do anything, whatever, run whatever scenes you want. And then whenever somebody's got time, they put together a mission, and they basically do open call for like this mission. It's going to be run at level 8, and if you have a level 8 character, if you have disparate levels, we have a system where they can move levels down or up temporarily to be a part of this mission. And a lot of the missions have kind of built on one another in a narrative sense, which is really just taking the conclusions of the narrative changes from the missions and then letting them breathe into the world. Yeah. You know what would be cool about this too, because I'm thinking of this, right? And like, if I make this system and it actually becomes a thing that exists, it's going to be like, again, it's going to be like the Legend in the Mist core book. It's going to be like, here's the basics. You're on a station. It's on its own. And people are excited to adventure. And here's some things about the world. Like, you can't do light speed in just a normal ship. So you're kind of just in your little local zone. And that could have a segment in the GM section or whatever. And it would be like, ideas for locks. And it would be like, revelation, there was an alien race here 2,000 years ago, and they worshipped a sea goddess, and you could find their iconography here, and maybe this will have this effect on the well-being of the station. You could kind of do it like a base building thing where the locks add a mechanical benefit to what is afforded on the station, but I don't know, might be getting off into the weeds there. But you could have, I guess the point I'm trying to make is you could have a set list of like, these would be exciting type things, ideas, just ideas. And again, the Legend and the Mist books are like insane with their ideas. They're like, here's hundreds of pages of examples and ideas. And you could do it like that. And then you could additionally have your, setting book, if you wanted to keep them separate, where you could be like, these are the things on this planet and they're here to be found. That'd be actually more like a campaign book, less a setting book. But yeah, I don't know. Never if when. Speaking of someone who starts so many projects that never see completion. Well, tell you what, the fact that I'm here streaming is kind of a big deal to start with. And I'm very proud that I pulled that trigger and believed in myself there. So the momentum is going in the right direction. And I'm streaming about designing my own game, and people are actually listening and interacting with me. So that's wild, and I'm so happy that you're here with me, all of you guys. Because I made that whole spreadsheet here on my own, and it was not as fun as this. I do like spreadsheets, but they're not as fun as you guys. Thank you. I am proud. You're going to make me blush. There's definitely something here. I'm glad I have music playing so you guys know I didn't freeze. I did, mentally, but like, I'm still here. There's definitely a step that I might have the answers in front of me, or I might have missed it or I just skimmed over it. But there's still a step here of like, there is an answer to the experience I want to provide. And if I can nail down that answer, that will tell me what I need in order to arrive at that answer. It might elude me for the rest of this stream and the rest of this night, but I know it's there. I can feel the fuzzy edges of it, like right on the edge of my consciousness. And so I have multiple mechanical approaches I could take to get there, but one of them will be better than the other to deliver the experience that I want to experience, that I want players and people running the game to experience. I don't know why I completely forgot about Forged in the Dark, because when I was thinking about this years ago, in fact, before I even had to kind of go away on my exile journey, when I was having the London hour calls, when I used to drive around, I had this exact conversation with people in that community, talking about how like kind of what I would want from like a space exploration game is something that's cyclical. You go out, you find something, you come back to your base. There's danger and challenge along the way. You overcome it, you come back to base. Do you see characters pursuing these locks of their own motivation, corporate sponsorship, debt payoff, all of the above? Because one of the things we identified, and this might have been right before you jumped in, were some of these like tension axes that we wanted to explore. What are the themes that I wanted the mechanics to reinforce? And we started to talk about like, is it work versus personal emotions? Is it the I feel like I'm blanking a word here. The obtaining of wealth versus the obtaining of knowledge. This would be like discovery for its own sake versus discovery for profit, which we then wrote here. Discovery towards a living, discovery for its own sake. We started to talk about, does that map somewhat neatly to a community versus individual? Are you pursuing advancements for the good of humanity or for your own enrichment? Not trying to place a judgment on that, but like that would be an axis of where a character might land. And then we also really got into this terror of the unknown and the fact that discovery is not without inherent risk and what that looks like. So I wonder... Again, my inclination is to kind of have this opportunity to run a game of this sort as kind of this slice of life type thing, where you're just vibing on a space station, on spaceships, on an exoplanet surface. You're plugging into the cybersphere and you're doing this and that, and interesting things happen to you along the way. That lived-in feeling. Which again, we've done to an extraordinary degree in our Pathfinder 2 play by post mega game, because we just counted up today people actively playing 14 that are like really into the world, like our world, and just being in it. And then when challenges come up, you roll dice using the rule system that we use. You know what I mean? So there's something about it there, but there's also this tension that I need to address, which is ultimately like, if I were making this as a game and it was going to be a book and I was going to sell it to somebody, it's not the goal, by the way, and I was going to sell it to somebody and say, go run this at your table with your 4 players, going the Forged in the Dark route would be the way to go. If I'm trying to create something more open, sandboxy, lived in, slice of life, then a Forged in the Dark shell would force you into this loop of like these missions and everything, which would be counterproductive to that end. I haven't read Heart. I watched a stream about it and I was very turned off. But that's just because of a lot of the imagery of it and the grossness and everything. I was like, that's not for me. But what I could pull from there is the dreams. Is that what they're called? Like each character has like their one big dream that they're trying to reach and satisfy, and then when they reach it, they also die or something horrible. I don't know. I might be completely misremembering. But I would love to know actually what elements of Heart you think would fit over here. That would be really good to know. Or address that. I'm going to have to rewatch this several times. And I'm going to have to restart my playlist again. All right. Tension between I'm going to call this product identity, right? Because it does shape what the thing is going to look like. A contained go play this with your 4 players game would look differently. Oh, you know what else I might want to look at someday that I've been planning to look at is Ryutama. Oh, is there... I don't recall much of the exploration aspect because I think I just couldn't get past all of the... I don't know. The descriptions and stuff when I was listening to that stream. What did I just say? Ryutama? I don't even know why that's coming up to me right now. That lived in experience, but also maybe some aspect of exploration discovery, but it's not trying to kill you. Has a procedurally generated hex map, and the loop is 100% about moving back and forth between hexes, but always going further. Huh. That could be interesting. Yeah. Why am I thinking Ryutama, though? Why? I haven't even read it. I haven't watched content about Ryutama in like 2 years. Yeah. People were all about the art. We started a joke in that community about how often the book uses the word wet in the text. I think the guy reviewing it, Derek, he did a search on the text, and I think there were like 71 uses of the word wet, and it was always like the wet bones or the wet squelching this or that, and so that became a meme. I ended up making an emoji for it. It was like I took the logo of the title of Heart and I like inverted the letters to make it say wet, made an emoji out of it. But then even so, he came to find out later, he was like, oh, you know what I missed that a lot of people said in his comments was that it was supposed to be over the top in a satirical way. And he's like, if I had gone in with that understanding, I would have read that completely differently. So I never gave it a chance beyond my initial impressions either. So the wet book, yep. Oh. Let me think. What else do I want to steal from like Astro Prisma, I wonder? Maybe not much, to be honest. Not the combat system, because that's really tuned for solo play. And kind of the randomness of it is something, again, that's more suited towards solo play and less for a game that's going to have some sort of balance or anything like that. Yeah, it's great to have you here. Always love chatting with you. Have a good night. Rest well. We'll keep trying to solve all of our sci-fi RPG problems. I'm really stunned that Ryutama came up to me and like my brain won't let go of that. So I think there might be something there. My subconscious might be trying to tell me like, hey, you've heard about this game and it probably has something you want. When did I even start with? Oh, M-Space. It's kind of funny. When I found M-Space, I was so excited because I was like, this is it. This is the one. This is the game that's going to give me the I'm in a science fiction novel vibe. And maybe it would. But again, if I'm being really deliberate about the experience that I want people to have at the table while playing it, even if it gets to the same place, it matters how you get there. And it matters that how you get there doesn't cause friction with the experience that I'm trying to have people have. This is challenging. You know, and even if I went with like a forged shell, I don't necessarily want anything to do with the stress, trauma, stress eclipse type tracks. Gee. Switch back over here while I just stare at the screen and think. What to do. I don't need to steal anything from Infinite Revolution Overdrive, that's for sure. I got the locks. This is really important. However they end up looking. But again, the locks are the delivery system. Let me add this in here. Locks are the delivery system for an experience, a particular experience. And that, whoa, hit the wrong button there. Oh, yikes, what have I done? There we go. The experience of the joy/terror dichotomy of discovery. That's spicy. Reframe stress into time. Sure, you could do time as a clock, which would make it, that would give it an element of like a survival game. Which I'm not, I don't think I'm looking for survival elements, but there's got to be something, right? Because how do I have tension when you're walking from your spaceship to the whatever? And, you know, this is another one of those, like, sci-fi challenge questions. It's like, how do you have space travel or, you know, a spacecraft of any type that can do vertical takeoff is, like, world-changing. It affects the setting. If you could only... Well, here's something I might want to consider. If you could only land these spacecraft where there was a landing strip, like an airplane, that would actually really limit things. But a lot of sci-fi hand waves that stuff, and you just have these ships that can come boosters down and they can just land wherever. And when you can land wherever, then why don't you just land immediately next to the thing that you want to explore? So then you have no exploration. You just have, my sensors picked this up, I'm going to land next to it, go outside, look at it, take a picture, come back. And you know, the tension in these sci-fi novels when they land on planets and they go places and then stupid shit happens and they're in danger is that, well, we landed and then we had to go wander around for a while and collecting samples and doing this and that, and then we got too far away from the spaceship when the random, like, creature came out of the forest and attacked us. And we were too far away from the ship, and so we're trying to fight it off with our little, like, laser cutters, which is like a utility tool, not a weapon. And then, you know, a character tragically dies because you weren't careful enough. Because Jack McDevitt always kills one character, and he does it, like, right at the end of Act 1. That's what I mean by formulaic. I'm like, oh, man, you did it again. Like, I'm figuring you out. Stop. I like your writing. I don't want to know what's coming. You can always tell which one's going to die, too. Because you're like, oh, I really like this character. They're not going to make it. Time is an interesting question. Now that you brought up time, there's no time pressure here at all. Because it's really not, I'm not putting these players, these characters, these people on the station, I'm not putting them in any danger that runs them up against a time constraint. You can have moments that run up against a time constraint. You're exploring an old ancient alien ruin and you're down there and, you know, it's below like the water line of the lake, and then you don't realize, but like it floods every night because the tides go up too high, and now you're down in there exploring things and the water's rising and you got to get out. Right? But that's like a specific like danger moment. Tech is limited, gets you in the ballpark, but isn't sensitive enough. Yeah. And I think I want to do things like that because sensors in sci-fi are just a shortcut to get to what the story is trying to actually ask, which are sometimes these big questions. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to this, that, the other thing? But if I want that to feel earned through actually living through it in play, you're 100% right that there needs to be some sort of throttling on how easy it is to get to the things that you want to get to. I mean, like, we're doing light speed travel with space trains. We're not just teleporting people. Like, there's infrastructure required to do these things, that other ships can't do. Yeah, that's an option. One of the challenges with this, though, John, is I don't know how to put it. It doesn't. It feels too much like taking the candy away from the kid, you know? Like, I'd rather just have low tech than say, well, your tech is actually great, but no, on this planet it doesn't work. And you're right, it gets you to the same place, but I don't know how better to put it. It does, like, it's like a GM in a classic fantasy game being like, oh, you went into this particular dungeon and you're like, your detect magic spells don't work in here. And you're just kind of like, what? Like, why? That just seems like a convenient way for you to throw a challenge at us, which I get mechanically, but like, you're like breaking the sense of the world. Not really. You're explaining it, but it's kind of like, okay, I got it. Yeah, detect magic doesn't work in this dungeon. So I'm hesitant with that, but I do like where you're trying to get with this element here. Limited tech. This song is such a banger. I should write that down somewhere. Or like I keep saying, I'm going to have to rewatch this stream a million times. This is good too. You know what? Because I do like the retrofuturism aesthetic of Astro Prisma, the cassette futurism aesthetic as far as sci-fi goes, where it's like, yeah, we're in space, but like, not everything is all holograms and perfect. I don't know how I'm going to explain the cybersphere then, but whatever. I guess Sarah would be like a cybersphere entity. So low tech feeds into the fantasy of Discovery 2. If the tech is awesome, could raise questions about why the keenness for the hunt. And you know what else the other thing is too, John, that I think I implicitly want that I didn't realize that you're touching on here is if your tech is low tech and you find new alien tech, and now there's a process, a long-term project, you might call it in some other game, where you can now unlock the synergy between this alien tech and yours, and now you can upgrade your tech. Now you have built in a progression for the entire station and how it interfaces with the world itself. It's like Metroidvanias in the sense that you like have to go through the map and you get the new thing, and then you have to backtrack to where you were because now you can do things in a different way, and it gives a replayability and a believability to the world in some way. I think that makes sense. Makes sense to me. Again, I should be writing this down, but you know, if it flows off the top, it flows off the top. I'm going to write your own words if that's all right, John. If the tech is awesome. Yeah, you're 100% right, because like if the tech is so good, then it's like, let's just get down to the planet side and let's extract minerals from these planets the way that we've done in the last 10 stations that have been made over the last millennia. So easy. And potentially, yeah, could that have happened? Yes. And so we are kind of imposing a narrative constraint, and we're just like, for whatever reason, we can answer it later or never, it's just not that way. And I think that's better for the health of the game, the system, and the setting. Let me finish writing what you wrote. Could raise questions about why the keenness for the hunt. Low tech. This is like a principle I want to write down. Low tech is upgradable. It builds in progression options into the game, the world, the setting. And you also don't want to do that with like, the tech is great, but the batteries don't last long. Because that's also kind of like taking the candy away. It's like, yeah, you can do that once. And then your super scanner is going to like drain because it's running off of like what would power a entire house for a week. That's not fun either. It's kind of tough because, you know, we've got some technology in modern times here on Earth that's pretty remarkable and astounding. So it's weird. It's like you're kind of crippling yourself there, but I don't know how to arrive there, but I do feel like it's the right answer. This is great content, me staring at a screen and thinking. What else could I think about locks? Got a lot of stuff down about locks. I know what I need to do next. Is there an implication the character can bolt on their discoveries, or at least part of them, and not just sending everything back, or does growth come purely through experience? I don't envision this being a game where the things you find immediately mechanically benefit you. And so that needs to be stated like clear and up front, because if somebody comes to this and they're like, I want to hit my character out with this cool thing I found, I'd be like, nah, it's not that kind of game. This is more about like, I think it is about either you're in it for yourself in a like wealth generation way, or you're in it for the advancement of humanity for some sort of whatever compunction you might have. But it would be almost... It would be like you make a discovery and, I don't know, just picking something out of the air. It's a new way to manipulate electrical currents, and you can fix it onto a gauntlet, and you can put it on your hand, and you can do things like manipulate magnetism around you or something like that. Okay, just hypothetically. What I would envision that looking like in the game I'm envisioning is you would find the technology or the components of the technology or an understanding of the technology if it required a comprehension of an alien language to understand what it even meant if you found it. And then you would need to bring it to the station or bring an expert to it to even have the ability to like synthesize it and actually make it usable. But once it is, it's now part of the world and it's accessible to all characters. And then at that point, yeah, you could bolt it on because you've like unlocked it, which is maybe all you meant in the first place. But I would be very careful in how I would write that up. Like, you don't just find a thing and plug it into your character. It's never going to be that simple. But to your question then, or does growth pure come through experience? That is a great question, because let's look at these different systems here. Like, I should copy paste this like a dozen times. In Astro Prisma, you're getting XP and you're spending it on character upgrades, abilities, etc. I don't know anything about Ryutama. In Forge in the Stars, you're spending upgrades on, we'll call them skill ranks, basically. That's it. Well, and abilities. You can also pick up abilities because you have playbooks, and I would not have playbooks in this game. In Legend in the Stars, you're spending experience on additional tags, improving themes. What do they call them? There's the things that come out of the theme books. Something upgrades, but they're basically like abilities as well. More like stunts and fate, to be honest. Unknown Armies, Urban Cosmic Horror. I will put that down somewhere. Where did I put... I didn't put it anywhere. Okay, I will just make a note here. Unknown Armies, Urban Cosmic Horror. Characters have stress aspects, violence, the natural isolation, and a couple others, I think. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. And then when you commit to that, you're identifying that whatever that seesaw is, if it's the seesaw between kind of community and individual. Whoa, good Lord, I've done it again. Community versus individual. Oops. I don't even have this up on the screen. My bad. I completely lost my place. If it's the seesaw between those things, then what you're saying explicitly or implicitly is that that's what the game is about. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a time and a place for that. I'm not sure that this is going to be that time and place, but if I find the right seesaw, it very well could be. adventuring versus safety is kind of a how safe do you feel, how much trauma have you taken kind of a thing. Yeah. But they would need to both be pulling in a way that had separate and different consequences for who you are, I think. Anyway, all good things to think about. Oh, I didn't finish typing this. Urban cosmic horror. As much as I'm not a horror guy, I do feel like the tension that would come out of this game I'm trying to create is going to be answered by horror games. And then I'm just going to soften the hell out of it. But I think that mechanically that is probably where I need to look, which I don't wanna, but I think that's where the answers are. Potentially. In Off-Worlders, you spend XP on stat increases. I think you can buy extra abilities. Is that it? Yeah, because you have like wealth for buying equipment and stuff. And in M-Space, I think you also buy skill increases, basically. Good call as far as like looking to horror for the framing, the way it's delivered. I think if that's what you're referring to, yeah. But like I said, I should have copied this first. Dang it. I knew I was going to want to do that too. That's all right. We can improvise, adapt, and overcome. Oh my god. Operating a keyboard while streaming is like not recommended. But what I want to ask myself with this list, and I also need to throw Star Trek Adventures out here somewhere because I know it has elements I want and I know it has elements I do not want. I do not want drives and character themes and sort of that 2D20 DNA. It's just not. It's not the type of story I'm trying to tell. And I don't have troop play, and it's not about playing a crew. It is about it being an individual. But I bet there's stuff in there I probably still would want to lift. So the question is, what is it about these that I like? And Astro Prisma for sure is about the aesthetic, 100%. Forged, I like the looping play cycle. I like the types of skills, or well, I don't have stats. I like the resistance mechanic in Forged games, but the resistance mechanic implies that you have a stress mechanic, which again, stress can be reframed or repackaged in a different way. It's about, because Forged in the Dark, because of the looping play cycle and the time constraint of that cycle, and the tension of the escalation of stress, you need to identify what that tension is going to be for that loop to not just feel like pointless. The tension should be ramping up towards the conclusion of that loop and driving you towards excitement and tension. And maybe this system isn't trying to do that at all. If I'm going to be happy with somebody finding a new lock, am I going to say, oh, you're going to find a new lock when you fight the like space predator that's in this ancient temple? And that's where you find locks, is when you do combat with like a tense like space beast. No, that's not the same thing every time. But again, there's mission types, and I have to remember that. Because you know what else you could have? Is you could have a situation where a group of characters, or the same group, same party, same whatever, identify the location of a lock and identify that it's extremely fucking dangerous to go in there and retrieve that lock. Even the lock as an abstract concept. And that would be a different mission type. A mission type would be like discover/identify a new lock. And then another mission type would be like retrieve a lock. And it would have the description. This could be the type of mission where this happened, or this happened, or this happened. And if you were running it in Forged in the Dark, the GM would be like, so there's some ancient alien riding carve, but it's inside the lava dome of a caldera or whatever. I don't know. But that still doesn't answer the question of what this is. What is the stress mechanic in Okay, wait, we might have it. We might actually have this already. What is the stress mechanic if I have a looping play cycle in a game like this? It's this right here. It's, what did we talk about? This one. It's the tension and the terror and not the terror, sorry, the thriller elements. It's fear, isn't it? I think it's fear. Like this existential dread type of fear. Like, are we doing the right thing? Are we in the right place? It's this unease. Maybe I'm in an alien temple. I keep going back to alien temples because they give kind of a clear picture, but like, it's unsettling. It's uneasy. You don't really know what you're up against. You don't know how to protect yourself against something you've never seen before. That's where that Cthulhuonic, whatever you call it, like horror dread comes from. So you could have that be something. And again, I would handle this with kid gloves. I wouldn't make it about like, and you're going insane. This would not be a sanity score in Call of Cthulhu or a sanity score in Delta Green or whatever. This would be, it's like a discomfort. It's like an unquiet. And then characters could have a breaking point like an eclipse where they kind of just shut down and they're just starting to like have a panic attack because like whatever. But I don't know, if that's too narrow for that like particular type of experience. It might be, but it's interesting to consider, and we've got some answers to it, so that's neat. Yeah. Legend, what I like that I would like to take is tags. I like how tags describe narrative truths about characters, scenes and settings, and provide challenges. In the same way that aspects and fate do. But Legend in the Stars would be very much about making a character that's represented by their narrative truths. And I think you need some sort of robust setting from which to draw that upon. You don't need the 300 pages of examples that Legend in the Mist has, but you definitely need something. And so there's actually quite a bit of kind of loose setting work that needs to be done to pull that off well. Or genre study work. But I like that. I guess I like the progression of Legend in the Mist. Hey, good point. I've heard a lot of people talk about Alien RPG, and I think Thaddeus, who's a member of our channel, he was saying that he was like excited with Alien RPG because he was saying that the mechanics are so good for just general sci-fi. You don't even have to play in the Alien universe. That the stress mechanics, which you're hitting on there, make you more likely to succeed, which is interesting. So you start hitting shutdown moments. Yeah. And this would be these things would be perfect if I was expecting all of these explorations and discoveries to be these really like tense moments, and I'm not. But I like what that brings to the table. So it's like, how do I get my cake and not have to eat it? Or like, I don't know what the phrase would be for that. Anyway, I'll write it down. Where did I put your other thing here? And we're looking at specifically the stress and fear. Yeah, it's there's going to be answers in there. I can almost guarantee it. I like this progression in Legend in the Stars that you add or change tags, and it doesn't. It's not vertical growth; it's horizontal growth. In a lot of ways, there's some vertical growth, but you know what else I like? Jeez, why do I keep hitting the button that goes into the header? The other thing I like is the trichotomy. How the hell do you spell trichotomy? Oh, like that. Hey now. That ain't bad. That is not bad, John. Not bad at all. That's really good, dude. That's a really good idea. There's something there for sure. But I like the trichotomy of the origin, adventure, greatness, because this is a genre emulation. So what is the genre emulation that I'm seeking when I think of a game that emulates being in a sci-fi novel? If I can answer that question, that would be really good as well. Both extremes could signal the end of a run. Players could manage it to hover in the middle. Yeah, and then I could start looking at games with balance mechanics like Avatar, The Last Airbender. Who else has good balance mechanics? What other systems? There's like one right on the tip of my brain, but I'll see if it comes to me. Legend of the Five Rings? Does that have a balance thing? Yeah. But yeah, you're definitely... Yeah, there's something there. This needs to be solved. If I can solve this, I'm going to feel pretty happy. So I need to ask myself the question. What is the... What are the elements of a sci-fi novel that I could emulate with theme types? That would be good to know. Yes, it's mouse guard. That's what I was thinking of. Between the nature and the mousiness, or whatever. I'm sure you know. Sounds like you'll know. Help me. But that is the game I was thinking of. 100%. It was 100% mouse guard. Also, where did you come from, John, that you've got all this breadth of experience? How did you find this channel? What would I want to steal from Offworlders? I mean, simple resolution, which is more attributed to PBTA than it is necessarily Offworlders, but I like that. I like how stripped down and fast it is. It's fast as all hell. Doesn't get in its own way. I mean, whatever. I'm just spitballing at this point. Doesn't get in its own way. Limited stats. But you know what? Most of what I've been looking at here are systems that don't even have stats, with the exception of M-Space and Offworlders, I guess. Because even though M-Space has stats, it's very much a skill system. That's where you stand out, I think. And what I do like from M-Space, even though it sounds completely counterintuitive to everything else here, is how do I put this? I mean, it gives you access. I'll just say what I'm thinking. It gives access to a simulationism. Frankly, I mean that's what it gives you. It says you're going to have some skills, and they're going to require certain. You're going to have some challenges. They're going to require certain levels of results, and go for it. Use the strengths of your character to try to solve these problems, and if you fail, then go find somebody else who can succeed. And there's something attractive about that. But I think I can emulate that by making the locks something that no one group can just solve alone. And if locks become those bigger arc moments like Alejandro was saying earlier, then I think I get the end result just from a just from a different angle. Wild. Oh man. Well, let's see if I get like a third or fourth wind here, because I might have like emptied my brain of what I've got today anyway. See if my decaf coffee will wake me up. It shouldn't, but you know, the brain can be tricked. Did I even write down? I didn't. let's get this in writing. Locks can function as broader narrative arcs. No one lock can be solved by one group or at one time. Bam. Did I already write? The discovery of a lock is a reward of its own. But of course I would actually incentivize. There's a keyword that I haven't really used anywhere that it's occurring to me that needs to be a part of this all, and that is the unknown. Locks serve the purpose of making the unknown known. And in a way, the unknown is kind of it's on the tip of my brain. The unknown is kind of the, but it's not an antagonist, but it is a oppositional force. If you could embody it, it is the thing that we're fighting against. It is the thing that we're trying to transform. I think that's a good enough phrase for me. The thing we are trying to transform. And different characters are trying to transform the unknown for different reasons, which is some of our axes about where characters line up. More individual, more community. Because the individual versus community asks the bigger question, what does it mean to be a human? What does it mean to be part of something? This is actually getting me somewhere very interesting. I know Derek always says in games he likes to ask, it's not about, there's a particular game that I think asks this question, but it's not about what you fight, it's about what you fight for. And so what I just, top of the head, started to realize is that the motivations, this would be like if you're going into character creation and it would be like choose a motivation. The rulebook would say, you are an explorer. Why? It would not give you the choice whether or not you're an explorer. It would tell you, this is a game about explorers. You are one such explorer. Why? Choose your motivation. And your motivations would be things like family. Loyalty to organization. Self-enrichment. The good of mankind. The station itself, you know, if you are bought onto that, which is its own like organization. This is hitting on something interesting. What does that do for you? Because if you're going to make this choice, sure, it can inform your character. Maybe this is just a prompt to get you to think about your character, but maybe this actually has some mechanical weight. Maybe your motivation is your playbook. And maybe your motivation sets some of your base abilities. I don't know about that, though. Because you could have any one of these 5 people who are a really good starship pilot. And that's not going to be determined by what they care about or why they do what they do. Potential loop, detect lock, travel to, determine nature, work out how to activate, then decide what to do based on the price and guessed outcome of activation. Yeah. Yes. Okay, now we're talking. Motivations. Inform why you explore. And maybe what you can do when times get tough. What resources you have, maybe? If you think of resources as things you can do in a situation. Interesting. I mean, it captures this sense of like, we're all on this station together, but we're all on this station for different reasons. And I don't think this needs to be a big piece of what a character is, but I think it would be fun to have it be a little piece that could come up and be very relevant. And then maybe you look at this from a different angle and you say, how do I arrive at these 5 things using a different mechanic, which might be backgrounds, character backgrounds. And then you spell it out a little bit more and you get to the same place. But it's in a more familiar, like, this is just about who my character is kind of a thing. If I can't tie these specifically to a mechanical element that's going to meaningfully change how you engage with the rule set of the game itself. I don't know. Okay, maybe now my brain's empty. So we got here by thinking about the unknown. Here we go. I'm getting somewhere here. The unknown is the thing we are trying to transform, the challenge, the obstacle, the opportunity, in bold, because it's more that than it is any of the other things. What if tools and skills give tags with some overlap? Tags for motivations are unique. Players aren't hamstrung by the motivation. It opens additional doors. Possibly, yeah. The other problem, John, is I hate equipment. As I'm like looking at this and thinking through this, I'm like, yeah, I could have different tools that do different things. I'm so anti-equipment. Which is wild. That's a wild thing to say when you're designing a sci-fi RPG. So maybe I need to get over it. Yeah. I'm going to have to think about... I mean, it's a sci-fi game. I'm going to have some stuff. And I'll have to think about mechanically what that stuff does. But let me get back to this. Challenge, the obstacle, the opportunity. Because every single one of those motivations point to the opportunity. Do I need to lower the quality of life to incentivize this exploration and taking advantage of this opportunity? That's a consideration. It's a really strong consideration I need to think about. I didn't want it to be grim, gritty, grimy, as I said. What is the state of the quality of life such that the opportunity presented by the unknown outweighs the comfort, safety, or security of the status quo. That is my springboard for putting characters into action. And that opens up these motivations. And that creates tension between this, and it creates tension between this. So, life on London Station cannot be utopian, because the characters and the people need to have needs that can be met by addressing the unknown. So that's world building I need to do. And, you know, it could just be that, like, space is limited. If you don't have a ton of money or wealth, you sleep in a... I don't know how much space, like, a sleep pod would be. But you live in a sleep pod. You eat the same, like, space food every day. And it's just not great. And maybe even the finer things in life, like going into the cybersphere or going to do a sim or whatever, you know, maybe this station is more bootstrapped than maybe I've been thinking, and people are excited to explore the planet and set up base camps because they actually have space to move around. But again, I don't want London Station to be dystopian either. It's just probably cramped, busy, people all over each other. Maybe. You know, I don't know what sort of exchange system I want to have, if it's going to be your classic sci-fi like credits or whatever. Kind of feels a little cyberpunky almost. And you know what else that does for us? Is it helps reinforce that question of what does it mean to be human? Because if we say, hey, your basic needs are met, you have essentially like a universal basic income that covers that you have a place to sleep and you have food. And if you want more, you need to go out and get it. Project Hail Mary might be a shout. Not much detail on the day-to-day survival, but trying to reach a location, analyze the creature, experiment, and then send back to help out home. I've heard good things. Lighthearted and avoids a lot of the grim sci-fi tropes. Okay. I'll put it on my inspiration list. I'm not good at getting to inspiration lists, but it would help to know what things I should be looking out for. Yeah. So it has a adventure aspect, adventure, exploration, analysis, cool. Appreciate it. Thank you. This is what I find so fascinating about this, and trying to design a game that actually makes internal sense. It's informed what the setting must be in order for the game to even make sense. It's cool. I'll move this note that you gave me up here into my like dichotomy section. I'm almost done being sick. Almost. So people are going out for these locks, and again, locks are a meta construct. There's not like actual locks on the planet, but they're going after these locks for their own enrichment to improve their quality of life, or to improve everyone's quality of life. And if you do it to improve everyone's quality of life, you incidentally improve yours, and if you do it to improve yours, you incidentally improve everyone else's. So there's no like antipathy there. But the reasons that people do it are different. And then we're back talking about those motivations again. And having what might be considered a bland quality of life. And asking the question, what does it mean? Wherever I put that question, somewhere here at the very top, I think. Here. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be? You know, you could imagine that, like, maybe these stations, when they get set up, they're just kind of these sterile, like, starting off places. And maybe they don't even have, like, flexibility to create art. Like, maybe the creation of physical art is a novelty. Like, you have to obtain the materials, and that's a big deal. And yeah, you can go into the cybersphere and do things there, and people make probably incredible, like, artistic creations in the cybersphere. But there's this, like, novelty and this, like, excellence of, like, creating something by hand. And now we're taking this debate about AI and the generation of art, and we're casting that forward 1,000 years into the future, and we're saying that maybe we're asking ourselves, you know, again, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to create? And that's potentially what these characters are. That's their starting off point, anyway. I don't know. A lot of interesting questions. Okay, I'm going to tap out soon. This has been very informative and fun. And I don't know. I'm very interested in M-Space. I'd like to play M-Space. But I think I've probably convinced myself that it's not really what I'm after all. So I would like to play it for its own sake and have experiences that will probably help me inform ideas for locations and adventures and everything else that needs to come along with a system like this. But yeah, very cool. Sounds like leaning towards unlocks grant a resource that you could use to send back to the government, corp, family, or keep some for the self. Yeah. Because I did touch on some sort of like having a home base, a base system that you can improve. Legality and proportions could be a choice too. Yeah, and I wonder if that gets into the Traveler system. I don't really know much at all about Traveler. That's a sci-fi thing that I have like no knowledge of. But I know that deals a lot with like you start off basically with space debt, and you're trying to like earn credits and money to pay off your ship usually, and there's that element of decision. Yeah, so I have to put. I mean, I hate to do it to them, but I have to put the characters in a lack that makes it even worth doing any of this. And I don't want it to be like a gross lack, but I think it's just it's a white bread lack, you know? And then the game can then ask a question of like, what does it mean to truly live? Which I think is a cool question to ask. I think so. Appreciate you being here, John, and all your contributions. Really helping me dive into a couple different options here. I got a lot more notes, and I can now let them like percolating in my brain for like another month before I try to do this again. It's been good. But I'm not going to cut off this song because it's absolutely transcendent. So we'll listen to the rest of the song, and then I'll probably call it. I got lots of friends out there in the world that are streaming tonight, I think. And even though we're not on Twitch, we like to throw people to our friends sometimes. So I'm probably going to go over and mute that, first of all. Thank you. And I'm probably going to go over and... Yeah, hey, thanks, man. It's today is the last stream of the first month of streaming, because Saturday morning when I stream Astro Prisma again, that'll be the start of a second month of streaming. So I held to a schedule the entire way through. I didn't vary it one single time. Saturdays at 8, Sundays at 9, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. So that's been really cool. I have a million things that I want to stream and do. I've got games that I want to play. Like, I'm not a video game streamer, but I thought I'd have an easier time fitting that in, and I'm just constantly busy doing all this other stuff, and there's just so much I want to do. So yeah, I guess that since we're in the kind of wrap-up stages, for anybody watching this later on as a VOD as well, please feel free to like the video, like the VOD, like the stream. Share it out in the world if you had a good time or you thought it was interesting. Feel free to join my community, and I've got information down there in the bottom left corner and in the description box about where all my stuff's at. You can join the Patreon and get access to the Discord, which is where all my peeps hang out. And we talk about all sorts of things like this, and we play games together. And it's a really neat place. You can get in for most of the things you'd be interested in for as low as $3 a month. And there's other tiers up above there for people that want to support more, but that's just for the wild ones. A couple of added benefits from the higher tiers, but really you get most of what you need from the 3. And what else do I always forget to say? I used to say, do the little hype thing, because I go into YouTube Studio and it's like, hey, there's no hype points on this. So I'm like, I should remember to tell people to do the hype feature. But I'm pretty sure that's another one of those things that you only get when you're a whatever they call it. I don't even know. YouTube affiliate. We got a ways to go before we worry about any of that type of business. But with that said, like I said, I got quite a few friends who stream out there, all sorts of fun things. And so we like to just pick one now and then, even though we're not on Twitch. And that's where I'm going to go after I wrap up. If anybody wants to come along with me and you're watching live and just drop in and say hi and then leave, it's always nice to show support to our friends. And these are guys that got me through a rough time almost entirely. Tend to send people to those that were with me over a difficult year of my life. So this is a link to my buddy Vice. We'll go check in on what he's doing. It looks like he's doing some World of Warcraft. With that said, thanks to everybody who was here earlier. Thanks to John for contributing here at the tail end and being part of the brainstorm. And we will see you again. We'll see you Saturday morning with Astro Prisma, where I'm going to show you some fantastic fan art. I can't even believe I'm saying that, but fantastic fan art of my character in Astro Prisma. And we're going to gawk at that for a while at the start on Saturday morning. So I'm going to take us out with that. Hope to see you again sometime on London Station. Have a great rest of your evening and a great rest of your week. Love you all. Take care.